Shout out to Johansai, tagged me on Twitter, says at Hero Hey, and says Disney dot 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 dot. So I take a look at this tweet, and where is Disney mentioned here? Well, we got to go to the actual image. Take a look at this in the bottom left corner. Disney, published by AniPlex. From the twistedwonderland.fandom.com Wikipedia, says Twisted Wonderland is a Japanese battle rhythm game created by Disney and AniPlex. Characters are designed by Yana Taboso. This is concerning because a lot of the projects Disney has worked on over somewhat recent years have kind of been terrible, especially what they've done to Marvel. So it's concerning to see Disney trying to get more into the anime scene. And it's not just Disney, there are more and more companies, Western companies, trying to get involved with productions from Japan. They see the interest, they see the demand, and they see that a lot of these Japanese companies don't have anywhere near the finances that some of these Western companies have. You got balance sheets, income statements padded to the billions, and they have funding. Now, while these companies are not doing so well, they have plenty of money to stay afloat for now, and they can get additional financing. So they're trying to look at this new market and get involved. All that said, Disney has actually worked on some anime productions in the past. This is not exactly new. However, they haven't worked on so many. And as the projects that they do work on the comic side of things, continue to fail, maybe they'll try to get more and more into the anime scene. And that's concerning because, again, a lot of the projects Disney gets involved with apparently seem to go very poorly. Don't want that for anime. No thanks. For example, Disney has been involved with certain Miyazaki productions. Here's one example from Spirited Away with a budget of $19 million US. Production of Spirited Away began in 2000. Pixar animator John Lasseter, a fan and friend of Miyazaki, convinced Walt Disney Pictures to buy the film's North American distribution rights and served as executive producer of its English dubbed version. Let's take more of a look into this partnership between Disney and Studio Ghibli. We have information here. In August of 1996, Tacoma Shoten, the parent company of Studio Ghibli, at the time announced that Disney would distribute their library worldwide, and that Disney also had the right to distribute Princess Mononoke theatrically outside Japan. Disney would go on to dub and distribute most of Studio Ghibli's films, as well as redub the films that were dubbed prior to the Disney-Tacoma deal. In 2011, Disney sold the North American theatrical rights to Studio Ghibli's catalog to New York-based distributors G-Kids, as they felt that they no longer needed them. Oh, this is funny stuff. Also, let's take note, of course, that Disney back in the late 1990s and 2000s is vastly different than the Disney that we currently have as well. Let's take note of that continuing on. G-Kids has re-released the films in cinemas a numerous amount of times, more so than Disney had ever done. In 2013, Disney US refused to distribute Studio Ghibli's then recent film From Up on Poppy Hill. They, however, still distributed the film in Taiwan, France, and Japan home media, though, and instead sold the film to G-Kids for distribution both theatrically and on home media through Cinedigm. This as the first Studio Ghibli movie since Princess Mononoke not released as a Disney product. Disney, however, distributed The Wind Rises through their Touchstone Pictures label, which was the last Studio Ghibli film released through Disney in the US. Other Studio Ghibli films, like The Tale of the Princess Kaguya, When Marnie Was There, Only Yesterday, and Ocean Waves, were also distributed through G-Kids, with Universal Productions Home Entertainment handling distribution. In 2017, G-Kids fully took over distribution of the Studio Ghibli catalog in the US, with the acceptance of Grave of the Fireflies, as it's not directly a Studio Ghibli film in many countries, as the rights to the film remain with the book's publisher and not Tacoma, and The Wind Rises, as the movie is still fairly recent. G-Kids have since re-released all the Studio Ghibli films on DVD and Blu-ray under their branding through Shout Factory. In 2018, G-Kids acquired the theatrical rights to Grave of the Fireflies, but the home media rights still remain within Sentai Filmworks. A little Sentai bit of information there at the end. Of course, there are other examples as well of Disney working on anime-style productions. Kingdom Hearts is one I think you can debate, although I don't know too much about Kingdom Hearts, and I heard that Final Fantasy characters weren't in Kingdom Hearts 3. Wonder why that is. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, though. I think there's a bunch of theories as to what's going on with that. I find this very interesting, though. Disney has these connections with a well-known, successful Japanese studio. It goes well, and then they slowly start getting less and less involved in it as the 2000s go on. Why is that? What happened in the 2000s? Well, this is just my hunch, but that's around the time, I believe, that superhero films really started to take off and become a trendy, popular thing. Sure enough, 2009, Disney ends up getting the majority stake in Marvel, and it all kind of ends up piecing together, in my opinion. Fast forward just over 10 years after acquiring Marvel, And Disney has really not utilized it so well, in my opinion. You have all kinds of Marvel productions that have seen a tremendous decrease in goodwill. Fans are not happy. Movies are getting worse, getting lazier, getting sloppier, forcing certain rhetoric into it. People are sick and tired of this stuff. So what does Disney do next? Looks at AniPlex and looks at the anime industry again and thinks, well, why don't we ruin this industry next? I'm being hyperbolic. I don't think Disney is nefariously planning it like that. At the same time, I mean, I don't think they care if the anime industry goes under, if they can get some profit out of it. So maybe it's really not that hyperbolic. I don't know, man. It's freaky though, man. It's freaky. You see Disney teaming up with AniPlex, who is owned by Sony, billion-dollar companies trying to get involved in an industry that's a lot more wholesome than they are. And they have no problem, again, in my opinion, just driving that industry into the dirt. I mean, if they wanted to play the long game, which I think is the smart thing to do, and I wish I had more power and finances on my end because I would totally do it this way, you can play the long game. You can build the anime industry up for like 20, 30 years, helping these smaller studios out, building them up. Instead, they just end up buddy-buddy with these Western billion-dollar companies, and sadly, some of these Japanese companies that mean well and want to deliver a good product to the fans, they don't know about all of this crazy controversial stuff that's gone on with companies like Sony, like Disney, etc., fill in the blank. So they see it as an opportunity. They don't know about all of the bad. They just know, oh, wow, this Western company that has billions of dollars is offering to help us out to get our product, maybe licensed, distributed over in the States. This is a great opportunity for our company to get some traction, for our product to get some traction, and for us to get to the next level. Unfortunately, they don't know that Disney and them, they're going to take the IP and do whatever the heck they want with it. Add rhetoric, ruin the goodwill, and then hurt the industry. It's a shame, man. It really is. Like I said, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. But they're in it for a quick buck, and they're in it for power, which is even more frightening in my opinion. Like, it's bad for them to only be in it for a quick buck because, it's not longevity right there. It's bad. It's a bad mindset. But even freakier is when they're willing to sacrifice money for power and manipulation. That's some freaky stuff. Like I said before, I think there needs to be more competition. I really do. There's not enough of it, in my opinion. There should be smaller companies that are also able to go over to Japan and look for properties that they're interested in to bring to the States. It shouldn't always end up going back to the same few that we see. And to be fair, it really doesn't. There are a fair number of smaller companies around. You just don't hear of them very often. So I still present the same argument. I don't think there's enough competition even still. I think there needs to be more smaller companies, or maybe some of those smaller companies need to band together and pool their resources so they can compete more thoroughly with these giant companies. Although that presents a problem because if they consolidate together, there's still technically not going to be as much competition, but the competitors will have more power to compete. So I don't know. The problem with that is then you have more and more, you have a smaller group of companies that have more and more power, so the startups are then at more of a disadvantage. All of it is a mess. Luckily, things are not super bad yet. We're watching the start, right? We're watching the start. And as we've seen and established in this video, this is not like the start of Western companies getting interested in Japan IP. I mean, this stuff goes back 10, 20 plus years, obviously. I'm saying the start of the downfall where these companies that are pretty corrupt start getting a bit too into it, and we see where it goes. History tends to repeat itself, as we've said over and over again. We've said it over and over again. I don't need to say it again. But look at comics, look at gaming. Anime and manga's next on that list unless people do something. And luckily, a lot of great people here in the West are doing great work pushing back against that. And a lot of people in Japan are pushing back against it as well. As we've seen, Japan is not immune. Some people think Japan is immune to this stuff. Not the case. We've proven that time and time again. Great example, Manga Gamer No Vectical. Great example right there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I covered the situation in a few different videos. Just look it up. Look up Hirohei Manga Gamer. Like 4 different videos covering that. Maybe 4 or 5 videos covering it. So I guess that's all I have to say on this topic. It's concerning, but it's not done yet. Let me also just shout out people internationally as well. It's not just people in the West and people in Japan pushing back against it. I am seeing more and more people in countries all over the world pushing back against this stuff. So the tide is shifting at least. And I guess all we can do is continue talking about it, spreading awareness, and maybe building up some more companies. But that's a complicated thing. We'll talk about that more down the road. I'm going to leave this one here. Thank you all very much for tuning in, and thank you all very much for tuning into the morning segment. That video is doing exceptionally well. Really appreciate all the support. Within the first hour, we already had over 20 people sharing that video on Twitter, so I'm sure I'm not going to shout everyone out here. Thank you all very much. If I missed you, I do apologize. My system caps at 20. Shout out to DXDKJ, Ambi-Pass Studio Productions, Ibrahim, Yuji, Taguro, a Yu Yu Hakusho reference, Weeb La Solja, Timo, Striker R, Charon M, Shinigami X Wolf, Ice Cream is Just an Illusion, Cliff, Pot on the Brain, Two Zippos, Eprezio, Unbreakable, Kenta, Tamaki Suo, Kaz, and Loadnust. Thank you all very much. And again, thank you those who I missed as well. Caps at 20 and all that. It's unfortunate, but you are helping out greatly by sharing the videos. You have my eternal thanks. And I'll catch you all next time.